Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Legends from the Past and the Future Show. We have a hot show tonight, man. How you doing?
What's wrong?
Whoa,
What
I have
happened?
the echo. Ayana, how
What?
you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. How's everything with you?
Yeah.
Wow,
What's going on?
Jeannie, how
You
you
must
doing
you,
tonight?
you must be
Jeannie?
the only one hearing an echo. I don't hear any echo.
Okay,
I don't
good,
either.
good,
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
awesome. How you doing, Rod?
You know, I'm hanging on in there. 10 toes down, 5 fingers up for now.
And toes down, standing on business. That's right.
Stand on something. Stand on my grandson Nick earlier. He ain't take that trash out.
Oh God,
Oh, Lord.
poor grandson.
Hey, look. Well, look, we got. Well, check it out. We have the Battle of the Beltway coming up Sunday. What you guys think about the Battle of the Beltway?
I think it's gonna be a great game, and the Ravens gonna come away with the win.
Oh,
What
wow.
about
What?
you, Rod?
I think it's time you teach them young upstarts a lesson. You know, every now and then you have to slap your little brother around, let him know he's not the big brother. That's what gonna happen to y'all.
Ayana, you have anything you want to say about it?
Oh, Commanders for life. Commanders for life.
Oh,
Come on now. Well, you know what? We're gonna make a quick prediction, and we're gonna let our viewers make a prediction on who they think gonna win the game. Okay?
I'm
I
looking
said
at it
Washington
right
win
now.
the game. What you think, Jane?
say it again.
Ravens.
I
That's all
think
that's
Washington's gonna win the game. What do you think,
The Ravens are gonna win.
Roger? What do you think?
the Ravens gonna win, man. What's wrong with y'all? I told you stop drinking before you come on the show.
Ayana, what do you think, Ayana?
Of course, the Commanders. I
The
said Commanders
Ravens.
for life. Commanders for life.
And I thought I said Ravens initially.
No.
Well, before we bring Leslie on the show, let's look at the viewers. Let's see what the viewers got to say about it.
We
I
ain't
see
getting beat by
Ravens,
no
I see
team.
Commanders.
We ain't getting beat by no team that took 5 years to figure out what their name is.
He down says Ravens. Robert Wright says Commanders. Blackie Queen says Ravens. Lenny Knight says Go Commanders. That's right. That's right.
Lenny been with them for a long time since high school.
I think we got it. I think we got it. Even the
I
viewership
was
is good.
born into this thing.
Oh, another Commanders. Okay.
Vanessa
Right.
says Commanders all the way. That's right, Vanessa.
Well, look,
They
I
gonna
think
go to
it's
sleep.
time. I think it's time that we bring
Somebody said
Get
the
a
time.
Leslie to the stage. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time. Let's bring on our guest tonight for the night.
That would be something if it was a time.
Leslie,
It'd be a time.
how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm truly blessed and honored to be a part of this show this evening. Good evening to everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
Good
evening.
evening. Good evening. Welcome.
So, Leslie, everybody is not hearing what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a feedback. It's really killing me. But we're gonna work with this, okay?
Okay.
Leslie, let's go back, okay? Let's go back. Tell us where you were born and raised.
I was born in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm a native Annapolitan, and I was actually raised in downtown Annapolis. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm proud of being a native Annapolitan. Love where I grew up, when I grew up, the time I grew up. I grew up during the time of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, 5 minutes from the Naval Academy, the greatest playground in the world. I went to kindergarten and elementary school at Annapolis Elementary School, went to Annapolis Junior High School before it became Annapolis Middle School, and graduated from Annapolis Senior High School and matriculated over to UMES, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, where I picked up a bachelor's degree, and went to Bowie State University to get my master's degree.
Okay. Well, tell us about your family. Are you the only son?
I am. I'm an only child. Yes, I am. I'm an only child, and but I was blessed in terms of where I grew up because there was a lot of guys downtown, and we all became close. One particular guy by the name of Michael Brown. Some of you may or may not know him, but Mike and I became like brothers. We met each other in kindergarten, and to this day, we still have a very, very close relationship with one another.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what were the things that you did that you just enjoyed doing while growing up?
Well, I've always been into athletic sports year round. Baseball season was baseball, basketball season was basketball, football season, it was football. So I was really, really heavily into athletics when I grew up, and also developed just an ear for politics. I just like to, even at a young age, I like to, look at what was happening with the elections and things like that. So I really, really, to this day, I'm still attached to politics. Never ran for office or anything like that, but nonetheless, I tend to, follow what's going on in the world of politics. And in fact, as it relates to that, myself and some other gentlemen in Annapolis, we actually organized an organization called VOTE, Voters Organization to Educate. And that organization went out to actually get people to register to vote. So I guess that organization was in place for about 10 years, and we got a number of people to register to vote. Didn't try to encourage them who to vote for, what party to register with, but simply to get involved in the political process. So the Voters Organization to Educate for Political Development was one of the early organizations that I became involved in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I gotta let you know that I used to watch you play ball back in the day, and you were a beast on the court, man. You were a beast on the court, and I used to watch people how they used to just cheerlead and put up your name. And I said, you know what? I want some of that right there. I like that, man. You were awesome.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because, ironically enough, while I really enjoy basketball and went to school to play basketball, but I like football as much as I like basketball. It's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other hand. Growing up, I was always the quarterback on the team. We won the first flag football championship in the city. So, like I said, I'm a big, big football fan. I'm a big, big basketball fan. And actually, I'm a big, big baseball fan because baseball is one heck of a game to play.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Yana and let her take over from here.
Sure.
And watch these questions or asking you questions. I'm going to step out and remove this mic. Go ahead, Yana.
Great. So you mentioned that you earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Tell us about those degrees. What did you get your degrees in?
I've always been fascinated and interested in history. So I got a BA degree in history. And then I went on to get I got a master's degree in social sciences at Bowie State University. But, I always was fascinated to this day. Well, I'm a historian. I just love history. I like, the recording of history. And what's fascinating about history, I think that we, particularly as African Americans, have to be cognizant of, is that we have to be in a position to tell our own narrative. We really do. Because, throughout our history, we haven't had been in a position to do that. But it's imperative that we be in a position as a historian. Historians tell the history. I mean, you can look at, for example, let me give you a very, very quick example. Everybody was familiar with the movie Gone with the Wind. That's a very historical movie. I remember when I was actually in high school, they actually gave us the day off so that we could go. They would transport us to the movie so we could see the movie Gone with the Wind. And I raised that because Gone with the Wind was a movie that, for the most part, told the Confederate side of the story as it related to the Civil War and like how it came about and everything like that. But as a historian, you have to be in a position to, like I said, be able to tell the narrative. And I think that we as a people have to understand that we have to be able to tell our narrative. Why? Because no one can tell your narrative better than yourself. All of the people who I'm talking to, relevant to their family and their legacy, no one can tell their family narrative better than them, all of the individuals that I'm speaking with now. So it's imperative that we be in a position to tell our own family narrative and the legacy that it leaves behind for the next group that comes along in the next generation, understands what's involved in their family, what has taken place in their family. I mentioned that I've always been involved in politics. Well, I had an uncle that served on the Annapolis City Council, Uncle Alphonse, and I had a cousin, Vasco Parker, who served on the Annapolis City Council. So, that was obviously I was connected to them. I was younger, but I was cognizant of the fact that they were involved in politics, and I would hear them tell stories about how they would just have to always answer and respond to requests that people had, because they would sit on the city council and people always would come to them and ask them about, Vasco, can you help me do this? Alphonse, can you help me do that? And ironically enough, as we're talking this evening, the city of Annapolis is in a position to make a historic decision because we have an African-American female who's running for the mayor of Annapolis. Rhonda Pendell Charles will be running for the office of the mayor of the city of Annapolis. And conceivably, if she wins, obviously that will be historic. From a historic perspective, we have had one African-American mayor that served. He served about 4 to 6 weeks, and that was John Chambers when he served as a city councilman. Unfortunately, the mayor at the time actually committed suicide. So someone from the city council had to step up into the seat of mayor of the city of Annapolis. Well, John Chambers, who was the longest reigning city council person at that time, stepped into that seat. So he served as the mayor of the city of Annapolis. It's the only time we've ever had an African-American who served in the capacity of the mayor of the city of Annapolis.
Wow. And so I heard you, discuss the importance of everyone being able to tell their own story, because so many of us just accept the history that's handed to us. Where would one start when it comes to telling your story or sharing your family history? What strategies or ideas do you have around how to get someone started in that direction?
Well, suggestion that I would give would be to, whomever is the patriarch or matriarch of the family, whoever is like the oldest person or persons in your family, I would go to them first. Why? Because they're the oldest members of your family who conceivably will remember some things and events that happened in the family, being the oldest members, or they would be connected to someone who is. So I would go to the matriarch or the patriarch of the family, or the oldest members of the family, and talk to them about what they could remember, about what events took place relevant to your respective family. And it's very important that you talk to them, particularly as they get older, while they still have a very, very frame of mind that's still intact. and they are able to communicate their thoughts relevant to what happened years ago. And it could conceivably be tied to your family's legacy, the stories and information that they could provide you.
That's great advice. I'm going to pass it to Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hey there, Mr. Leslie. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm good. Thank you. We just welcome you so much. We're glad to have you this evening.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so this is a pleasure to talk to you this evening. So tell us, can you go back just a little ways and share with the audience where you grew up downtown Annapolis, but as far as your upbringing, as far as in the church, and where did you attend church? And
well, you know, you're right. I grew up in downtown Annapolis, but I happened to go to kindergarten over at a lady named Miss Minor. She was our kindergarten teacher, and that was over in College Creek Terrace. It was a building down below all of the homes over there, and we would go to kindergarten. So I raised that point simply because I attended an integrated school. I went to Green Street or Annapolis Elementary School, which was integrated. But by getting that foundation from Miss Minor in kindergarten, when I went into Annapolis Elementary School, I was ready. When I said I was ready academically in terms of, because it had not, if you recall, I started school in, it would have been 1958. So integration was really recently coming into being, not long before that. So, you know, we were one of the first classes to integrate Annapolis Elementary School. That being said, I never was intimidated academically by my peers because of the foundation that Miss Minor laid out for myself and the others in the kindergarten class that I attended. And a number of the people who attended that kindergarten class actually went on to post-secondary education. So she laid a real serious and solid foundation for us in terms of being academically prepared for what we would have to deal with when we attended elementary school and beyond.
That's awesome. So her name is Miss Minor?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So after elementary school, did you attend Bates?
Actually, after Annapolis Elementary School, this was before the middle school, I attended Annapolis Junior High School.
Oh, okay.
And it's interesting that you asked that question about Bates, because I'm going to interject at this time. I attended Annapolis Junior High School, and believe it or not, because I played basketball in junior high. We didn't have a league, but we played against each other in terms of the schools. And this was before Bates actually was turned into a middle school. So the last year, I'm thinking, like, where am I going to go to school? Am I going to go to Bates, or am I going to choose to go to Annapolis High School? Because at the time, Bates was the only all African-American high school in the county. So I'm twisting, turning, and everything like that. Unbeknownst to me, the decision had been made to close Bates, and the only high school to attend was Annapolis High School. So I ended up going to Annapolis High School and ended up playing basketball at Annapolis High School. But ironically enough, as I mentioned, I like football as much as I like basketball. However, back in that day, guys our age, we had to work. So I worked in a restaurant. Restaurant, some of you may is no longer there. A restaurant on West Street called Royal Restaurant. I washed dishes for a number of years. So I had to choose either one sport or the other because I had to work, bottom line. So I worked in the restaurant washing dishes, and I chose basketball over football, although I did like football as much as I enjoyed basketball, as I pointed out to you earlier. So that was a decision that I had to make. Now, like I said, I'm laying in bed. I'm thinking about, where am I going to go to school, Bates High School or Annapolis High School? Well, they made the decision for me. They closed Bates High School down and made it a middle school. It was grades 9 and 10. So I did attend Bates High School, grades 9 and 10. And then 11th and 12th grade, I went over to Annapolis Senior High School, where I graduated from.
Okay, thank you for that. Roger, I'll turn it over to Roger now.
What's going on, Mr. Leslie?
Hey, I'm good, Roger. How about yourself, bro?
I'm real good now. I heard you mention Roscoe Parker was your cousin.
Yes.
Warren Maurice Parker brother.
Yes.
Well, Warren Maurice Parker is my grandfather.
Okay. All right.
So now that we officially let everybody know we related,
And we connected. There you go.
That's right. You could talk about Dallas all you want to. I got your back.
My man.
I got your back. Bud is in his house. It's all good. So, you talked about your athletic accomplishments and everything and all that. How many of your children followed in your footsteps when it comes to the athletic thing?
Well, my son Darius, and probably everyone knows Darius. Yeah, Darius actually played basketball at Annapolis High School, and he also played basketball at Anne Arundel County Community College. So he did follow in my footsteps relevant to that. And my daughter Lamoya, she ran track in high school, so she was she was on the track team. She was a runner. So they were involved athletically in their own pursuits. And I was really pleased with them in terms of which way, what they wanted to do. Never tried to encourage them either one way or the other. I just wanted them to make up their own minds about just what they wanted to do with their lives.
Yeah, that's outstanding. You don't never want to push your children a certain way because sometimes they rebel.
Right.
And I heard you say that, back in the day you washed dishes. I guess that's another family trait. I washed dishes at Naval Academy as a young man.
We did what we had to do. We did what we had to do. Yes.
My father said, you got to get a job. You can't. So I went down there. I washed my dishes and spent my little bit of money. I still ain't had no money, but I washed up some dishes down there, though. So,
not to cut you off, but someone mentioned something about church. And obviously, Jeannie and I, we attend the same church, Asbury United Methodist Church. And one of the greatest things that my grandparents raised me, actually, that they could have done is, back then, they made me go to church. You got to go to Sunday school, is essentially. So you go to Sunday school. It's just a natural transition from Sunday school, to church itself. And being made to go to Sunday school was one of the greatest things that they really, really, really could have done for me. And I say that from this particular perspective. As individuals, I don't care who it is, we all have to really, 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 really connect and develop our own relationship with the Lord. No one can do it for you. No one. Everyone has their own individual relationship with the Lord. Some, and it's a personal thing. It really is, and we see it oftentimes come into being, when someone has passed, in terms of the homeborn service and the outpouring and things like that. But it was something that my grandparents made me do. They said, "Look, you got to go to Sunday school. You got to go. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it." So I went to Sunday school, and from there, next step was church. And that was one of the greatest things that they could have done for me in terms of having me attend Sunday school so that I could develop my own personal relationship with the Lord.
That's great. I went to Asbury Broad Neck because my mom, she's from Browns Woods, and the church named after her great uncle. So it was no church there. Okay. Otherwise, we had to drive all the way down to Gilesville. My father grew up in Gilesville.
Oh, wow. In Gainesville, really?
Yeah. So my mother said, no, we're not doing that. We're going over to Asbury Broad Neck. So
I tell you something that you have at Asbury Broad Neck to this day. And this, all of the churches that I've ever attended in this particular area, Anne Arundel County, they have some singing people at Asbury Broad Neck, and you know what I'm talking about. I mean, they just
most of them are cousins. All them Hunts and Johnson.
All them Hunts, yes. That's right. I mean, you're right. You have family of singers, the Hunts, the Stansburys, the Rows, the Allens. I could go on and on and on.
The Marys,
Yes.
But you know what? They ain't had nothing else to do. You got to look back in the day. Everybody didn't have a car. I remember my grandfather used to pick up like all these people and pile them in the car to go to church, and we all scrunched up in that back seat. But you better not say nothing. You better not say nothing. And then my grandmother, we get out and your shirt or your jacket wrinkled, and she upset. And then my mind was like, it was 100 people in that Cadillac. And your clothes not gonna get wrinkled. But I didn't say that to her. I didn't want go down in the basement. That's where they went to discipline. I don't know why, because everybody heard what went on.
But you bring up a good point that back in the day, all families didn't have automobiles. They didn't have cars. And that's very, very true. I know growing up, our family didn't have a car. But somebody in the neighborhood probably had a car that we could, use, or we had to have access to it. they were very friendly. But you're right about that point.
What prompted you to start the summer league basketball thing that you started?
I tell you, playing basketball and thinking and going around, to Annapolis, I noticed that the younger children, they didn't seem like they were involved in any kind of activities during the summer. And summer basketball had, come into being, but we didn't have any summer basketball program in Annapolis. So I said, why don't we start the Annapolis Youth Athletic Association, which was a basketball league for the youth. And so we did, and it carried on for a number of years. And one of the components of that basketball program was, if you were going to play basketball on that Saturday, we would set you up in the stands, and we would bring in speakers, generally to talk about education or something like that. So it just wasn't about basketball. We knew that the young people wanted to play basketball, but we also brought in speakers that could talk about education or just a variety of subjects for the young people to hear, to let them know that life is about more than athletics. It's more than basketball.
That's great. And, they need that, especially these kids today. Idle hands is the devil's work.
I'm telling you.
And if you put them into something that not only grasps them physically, but mentally,
mentally.
you
yes.
right there, you training the future.
Yes, you are. And you try, and and I stay connected with a number of them. I see them to this day, and they stop me on the street and say, "Mr. Stanton, thanks, for having that basketball program for me when I was growing up, when we was growing up, because really, it helped to guide me, it helped to keep me out of trouble." And those are the things you want to hear when you see these young people that are doing well for themselves. That's really what we want to see as older adults. We want to see our younger children progress as they matriculate through life.
Yeah, basketball could be an out too. When I was stationed overseas, I played on the mini Olympic team. And the only reason why I did that is because we had to work. So, we went to basketball practice, and then we was getting on the plane, went to Japan and all these other places and played at Oberastronaut, and we were still getting our military pay. So
that should have been nice. That should have been nice.
Ooh, boy, I tell you, we played on the same court Jordan played on in the Olympics.
Oh, really?
It went down and did extremely well. I had a good year, MVP, won the slam dunk contest. So when I came back, I thought, I don't have to do nothing. My commander was like, now that you've been gone, he gave me a whole list of details. Boy, he worked the snot out of me. Well, it was good, though. But I'm going to pass you over there to Armin.
Okay.
All right. Take care of my cousin, Armin, because I'll come see you.
Hey, so I'm receiving a lot of feedback. I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to move on and let the team go from here, okay?
Okay.
So Leslie Stanton saved Annapolis Summer League. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, there was some incidents that occurred at the Summer League, and I forget the name of the mayor at the time, but the mayor wanted to abolish it. He wanted to, he wanted to do away with the Summer League, some basketball league program. And some people down the city at the city council meeting, one I recall is Astro Sims. All of you remember Astro. And a couple other people said, no, we got to continue this basketball program. Who can we get to run it? So my name was brought up, and they agreed that if I ran the basketball league, that they would go ahead and continue with the basketball program. So as a result of that, then I began to run the men's basketball program. And at the same time running the men's basketball program, we continued the youth program. And what was unique about us continuing the youth program was that we not only had basketball games played at Hilltop, where the games would generally play, all the games for the men would play, but we went to College Creek Terrace, we went down to Robinwood, we went to 20, we went to Annapolis, wherever there was a basketball court in one of those respective communities, we took the league there and played in their respective community. So their mothers, or fathers, uncles, or whoever could come out and see them play. So that was kind of unique in terms of taking the basketball program around the city to the different respective communities to allow the people in the community to come out to see, their youngsters or their relatives play basketball.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have a few audiences have made some comments. Steve Banyan, awesome interview. Enjoyed working with Mr. Stanton in Anne Arundel County Public School as a colleague and leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I recall, thank you, Steve, for the comments. And I enjoyed working with Steve, too. He was one heck of an administrator, did one fantastic job for Anne Arundel County Public Schools in terms of working with young people. Because, you know, what's really relevant in education is that if you really don't have a passion for working with young people, you shouldn't be in education. You really shouldn't, because it's so critical. I mean, so critical to the lives of everybody that goes through that. We have to matriculate. We have to go to school. We have to learn how to read. We have to learn how to write. We have to learn mathematics. So if you're going to be involved in education, you're going to be a teacher. You have to have a passion for that in terms of working with young people. And in today's educational system, you not only have to work with the young people, you have to involve the parents as well. So the parents will come in, and you have to develop a relationship with the parents so that they can work with their children at home to help them while the children are not at school. So I mean, it's a lot of dynamics to that has to be carried on in order for the child to be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another viewer, Lenny Knight, he said he had the pleasure of having Leslie as his coach for Eastport Summer League. He was a true member of Young Men. Mentor of Young Men, I'm sorry.
Lenny, I appreciate you calling in your comments. And Lenny was one heck of a player, but Lenny was one heck of a man. He really was. He was an outstanding young man to this particular day. And it was a pleasure working with Lenny. It really, really was, because I knew him, knew his family, and he was really a pleasure to work with on the basketball court. But outside of the basketball court, he's really, really developed into a very outstanding young
man. Awesome. Ayana, do you have any questions?
So we also had a comment from Jeff Brown. He said you were one of the best coaches, and he learned that I learned from early in my career. And he called you Coach Stanton. And then we have Daryl Brown says Spa Road Hero.
Okay.
And Vernell Mako says, what's up, Les? Great player and coach.
Oh, thank all of those people for those comments. I tell you, they were all good athletes, all good athletes, the people who you mentioned. Outstanding. Each and every one of them were outstanding athletes. Very, 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 very well accomplished. Yes, they were.
Great. And so we talked about, what you studied in college, and we know that you were a coach and that you played some sports. Tell us about your professional career. Once you graduated from college, tell us about the transition from college to your first professional job, and what that was like, and what it matriculated into.
Well, my very first job actually was as a teaching assistant at the University of Maryland, College Park. That was actually my first job, and I really got paid. And wasn't a lot of money, but I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that immensely. I did. And I did that for about a year, maybe two. And then I went to work for the Department of Education, the Division of Rehabilitation. And I worked in Baltimore. And I had the opportunity to interact with families as relates to their children, because I worked primarily with families who had children in school. So that was kind of like right up my alley. I was able to connect with the young people in relationship to that particular position. And then I had, that job was primarily in Baltimore. And then I had the opportunity to come to Annapolis to work for the Anne Arundel County Public School System, or the Board of Education. And I was the Human Relations Director for Anne Arundel County Public Schools, which gave me an opportunity to go around actually to all of the schools throughout the county, with all of the administrators and a number of parents. And it was really, 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 really an interesting job from this particular perspective. A lot of the students that I worked with had some kind of issue that was going on in school. Something may have gone wrong and they needed to straighten out. And I was supposed to be a member of the team, but I didn't view my job as being a member of the team, when I say not being a member of the team of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, which I was, I also had to work with the families of the students. And they were most critically important to me. What I would try to do in my job capacity was to keep them from really having to serve, frankly, a lot of time for either suspensions or expulsions. So if we could find some alternative to them being expelled or suspended for any extended period of time, I would always push that. And primarily because we all have made mistakes in our lives, and I believe in second chances. So oftentimes, and in doing that job, what I had to do was to develop relationships with the respective administrators, the principals, the directors, people who had a significant part in the decision-making process in terms of students being either expelled or placed on extended suspension. And I would always try to encourage them to make the expulsion the very, very, very last alternative, and try to get the student involved in some kind of alternative program that would allow them to stay in school. So I enjoyed my job primarily from that particular perspective, in terms of trying to work with students and their families to get them to continue to allow the school system to allow them to continue to go to school while they may have worked through some of the difficult things that they had going on.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to pass it on to Roger.
All right. What's up, cuz?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
So, I was looking through your bio and saw you was a Hall of Famer. Tell me, what's that like?
Well, I think primarily because I had the good fortune of playing on outstanding basketball teams. And in addition to playing on the basketball team at Annapolis High School, I wasn't a poor student. I wasn't the best student. But if I had to do it all over again, it's always 2020, I would be a straight A student if I had to do it all over school. Now, I made honor roll from time to time, so that was cool. But school, while I enjoyed school and I enjoyed class, it was as much social interaction as it was academic interaction. It really was. But I really enjoyed the heck out of school. I really did. So I ended up going down to the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And aside from my experience in kindergarten, because I went to Annapolis Elementary School, Annapolis Junior High School, and Annapolis High School, that was integrated high school. The University of Maryland, Eastern Shore was predominantly, and continues to be predominantly, an African-American institution, HBCU. But we see more and more integration, and that is from people who live in the community who take advantage of the resources that the University of Maryland Eastern Shore has in relationship to what can assist them in their professional development or their life's development. So the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, being away from home for the first time, that was a real challenge for me. It was a challenge from the perspective of being away from home. And at one time, believe it or not, my very first semester, I got 2 F's and 4 D's. And that's simply because I was partying. That's all. To this day, I still love to dance. I love to dance. Not necessarily the greatest dancer. I just love to dance. So they had the student union, so we go dancing. So after the first semester with those 4 D's and 2 F's, I ended up, ironically enough, when I graduated from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, I had a 3.45 grade point average. And if I had not gotten those 4 D's and 2 F's, my very first semester at UMES, I would have finished with a 3.5 when I graduated from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. But I just cut up my first semester being away from home, want to dance, go to the student union, party. So when I saw those D's and F's on my report card, I made up my mind. I said, look, I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to be here. And at the time, I had a son. Darius was born, and I'm thinking about Darius. I'm like, his father can't be a quitter. He has to set an example for him So he really encouraged me by, him being, born to remain at school so I could set an example for him. And you all know Darius. Darius has gone on to do fantastic things in his life in his own right. But that being said, when I went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, I had the honor of being I had the highest grade point average of any athlete that played basketball in the entire conference of the MEAC. That's all of the teams. That's all of the teams. All of the basketball players. I had the highest grade point average of anyone that played basketball throughout the MEAC.
Well, that family bloodline, we always smart. I just throw that in there.
Hey,
but
you got that right.
I just had to squeeze that on up in there. It wasn't like that for me in college. My first year was just like that. I just went to party and everything.
Right,
I had to grow. Once I got in the military and started going to college, and they was paying for it, their rules was a lot sterner.
Right.
You kind of belong to them. And it ended up with me getting a few degrees. But I was talking to your son a couple of summers ago.
Okay.
You let him know we related. I didn't know then. I was trying to get him to run for mayor, but he wasn't trying to hear that.
Right.
He said he wasn't going to do that. But, at the time, we was doing the Armin, and I was working with another group doing the same similar what we're doing now. And Armin was interviewing some and interviewed your son. So, but I noticed that you worked at the rehabilitation vocational counseling.
Right.
How was that? Did you enjoy that job? How many goals did you sit there, and how many of them did you accomplish?
Well, I enjoyed it from a couple of perspectives because I had to travel to Baltimore, and that was an experience for me, having to travel to Baltimore every day. So at the time, for a period of time, I didn't have a car, so I would catch the bus to the train station up in Glen Burnie, catch the train into Baltimore City, and then from there I would catch a cab to the Maryland to the Rehabilitation Center. So, and my point is simply this: when I talk to young people relevant to jobs, and I encourage them to go ahead and do what you have to do to work. And that's what I did. I mean, I had to take 3 modes of transportation, but I needed a job. I had a son to provide for. So I needed a job. So I went to work in Baltimore. And that was a learning experience for me. I mean, I recall times when we had terrible ice storms and snowstorms, and I would have to stay there at the rehabilitation center because it would be too dangerous to travel at night, because I think my hours at that time were 3 until 11. And I had the opportunity to work with a lot of young people who were going through different changes and challenges in their respective lives. So I became connected with them in terms of trying to help them sort of turn things around. And that was a very rewarding experience for me. One of the most rewarding things that ever happened to me was while I was working there, and it was really, really a bad day in terms of the weather. It was like snow, ice, and everything like that. So a couple of students came up to me, and it was 4 or 5 of them around. They said, "You know what, Mr. Stanton?" I said, "What's up, man? What's happening?" They said, we said to each other, they said, "We know Mr. Stanton's going to be here." Now, when they said that to me, I was done, because for them to feel like, for them to know me like that I was really invested in them, that they said, in spite of the inclement weather and things like that, they said, "Mr. Stanton, we knew you would be here." And that really, that I was done. I really was when they shared that with me. So really, it just made me feel like the work that I was doing was worthwhile for them to feel like that. So I just enjoyed that entire experience.
Well, it just shows what type of intestinal fortitude you had. And, I noticed you mentioned Darius a lot. I can relate to that because I was a wild guy before my son came. Right. And then, once that's how my son came. Right. Being a wild guy. But the children will never understand what they do for us and what they force us to do for them. Everybody on this panel have children. And that's I guarantee you, I don't know everybody's story, that they made some sort of sacrifice for their children. Your son told you because you had them, you had to get those grades. On my side, you know, I had to stop playing basketball, I had to stop running the streets, I had to go ahead and buckle down and make rank because, you know, Similac was cheap back in the day. Apples was cheap, you know, so I had to go ahead and make rank and do what I had to do. I remember cutting grass on the weekends, but they force you to mature.
That's right.
I was 21 when my son was born, and only in age, not in mind. But once he came, you know, he forced me to become a man. He did. And that's the same thing that happened with you. But children don't understand that. They will never know the sacrifices of what we said we're going to do without so they can have.
So they can
as
have.
Parents, we never go back and tell them.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was actually 18 when Darius was born. So, you know, I was a very, very young father when Darius was born. And but he helped me, like you point out, though, he helped me to develop, he helped me to grow, you know, because of some of the things that I may have wanted to do, I just didn't have an opportunity to do. I know a friend of mine, he reminds me of this oftentimes. I remember, in fact, 4 or 5 of my friends happened to be going over to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. It was something going on, homecoming or something, an event was going on. Some, you know, outstanding star was going to be there. And they said, "Come on, man, you ready to go?" I said, "Look, I can't go." I said, "You know, I have a son to take care of. I got to be here with my son, and I don't know who the babysitter is, so I'm gonna stay here with Darius. I'm gonna be here with my son." So one of the guys told me later on, he said, "You know, while I was riding over the Eastern Shore, he said, Leslie, he said, what you said stuck with me all the way over there as related to my son." He said, "I realized I had to be, you know, more involved with my son's life. And from that point on, I was." He said, "Because when I saw what you did," he said, "you put us aside because, you know, you had a son to take care of and you did what you had to do." He said, "After that, I got really closer to my son." And I said, "Well, you know, I was glad to hear that. And to this day, they have an outstanding relationship." So, you know, in just in terms of, because understanding in terms of my background, I was raised by my grandparents. And I didn't live with my mother nor my father. And I had a close relationship, relatively speaking, closer relationship with my mom than I did with my dad, because I saw him once or twice a year, something like that. And it was what it was, you know. And I mentioned a very, very close friend of mine, and his name was Michael Brown. He was raised by older people who actually weren't his grandparents or parents, but they raised him. And I was raised by older people, and we connected in kindergarten. And we both kind of feel like that the Lord put us into each other's respective lives, because he was raised as an only child. He had siblings, but they never lived with him. So I was an only child. He was the only child. We met in kindergarten. So our lives kind of ran somewhat parallel in respect to how we were raised, how we came into the world and things like that, respective to our mothers and our fathers. So we just kind of dealt with it, you know, the way that it did. In my life, for example, I had the opportunity to be with my mother and my father on one occasion in my life when we were all together. It's a place you may recall called Cuffy's that used to be down by Sparrows Beach. And I recall I was a young kid, 6, 7 years old. And my mother and my father were together with me. And that's the only time in my life that I was ever with my mother and my father. But I distinctly, as I'm talking now, this is the stage in my life, I recall us being together on that occasion down at Cuffy's when my mother, myself, and my father were together, the only time in my life. And it was just, and it's just kind of like stood out to me for obvious reasons. I'm with my mother and my father, you know. But that being said, in spite of, I mean, I understand that the Lord has truly, truly blessed me, and I have to give all praises to the Lord and my grandparents for what they did, you know, for raising me. And my mom was, you know, when she could do what she could do. So, I mean, I've truly, truly been blessed for the life that I've had. Is my life perfect? Heck to the no. I mean, you know, nobody's perfect, and we realize that. That being said, though, I know that the Lord has been good to me. And like I said, when my grandparents made me go to church, that's one of the greatest things they could have done by making me go to church.
You know, when you're raised by an older group, and then I'm going to pass you on to somebody else after this, but when you're raised by an older group, you have older ways, and you pass those ways on to your children. Right. And I noticed that when I see the similarities, even in your facial expressions between you and your son, and you both had the same mind frame. So by you are obviously a great father, because he is a great man. He really is. Don't tell him I said that though. But he is a great man. He is a great man, and that's because lineage don't go far. The apple don't fall far from the tree. Right. And obviously he had good roots in you, and it shows every day.
And I appreciate that. One thing I noticed about Darius is I'm talking to you, and you may not can see it as I can view myself. But when I see him speaking, and I see like my hand motions and my body motions and things like that, I swear when I see him speaking, and he speaks a lot, I can see that in myself, because I do, same thing.
Right.
When he was growing up, he would always take some of my clothes. He wanted to wear my clothes. But that's what young guys do. They want to take, they want to wear their clothes. They want to be grown and things like that. So, but Darius is in his own right is an outstanding man. He's an outstanding husband. He's an outstanding father, and I'm extremely, extremely proud of him, as I am all of my children.
Absolutely. Yes. Jeannie.
Okay, hey Leslie.
Yes.
So you are well respected throughout the community and looked upon by many in Anne Arundel County. Can you share with us some of your most awarding accomplishments?
Well, I mentioned this organization earlier, the Voters Organization to Educate for Voter Development, Vote. That was an organization that encouraged people to register and to vote. Not to try to get them to vote Democratic, Republican, or whatever the case may be, but to become involved in the political system. So I'm very proud of us pulling together to get people involved in just the political process. Because, if you're not at the table, you won't have anything to say. So you got to be involved in some capacity or another, And we would oftentimes hear from people that would say, well, why should I vote? Because it's not going to make a difference. Well, I hear what you're saying in relationship to that, but it does make a difference, and it can make a difference. I mean, relevant to people who have been incarcerated, where do they get, people off the rolls to put them on juries from? People who vote. So, I mean, it can be served. You can serve your community in different capacities simply by being involved in the political process. For example, as we are speaking this evening, we had the possibility of having someone become the first, as I mentioned, the first female African-American mayor. We did have a mayor, John Chambers, who served for 4 to 6 weeks as mayor of the city. But we have an opportunity to put someone in that significant office in the city, Rhonda Pennell Charles. And I encourage everyone to go out and vote. And I'm being partisan in this particular respect. Sure, I'd like to see her win that election. Rhonda has been a community doer ever since I've known her. We had a class together, I recall, in high school. She went on to matriculate at Morgan State University. She went on to get a law degree. She's been an attorney, a prosecutor. So Rhonda's well prepared to do the job as the mayor of the city of Annapolis. And I think she, without question, she will do an outstanding job if she's elected to that office.
Gotta vote.
Yes, please. Yes, please get out to vote. And what's funny about voting, ironically enough, if you look at the numbers, the presidential election, whenever there's a presidential election, there's a much more significant turnout, even for local elections. And it's ironic that that's the case, but we still would never ever approach 100%. We as a country, we don't. Maybe 70%, 75, 72%, 68%, somewhere in that neighborhood, where we have people who really had the capacity to vote, simply, for whatever the reasons may be, don't turn out to vote. And that's so ironic. And I know I've talked to people about that over the years. And we had people, for example, who lost their lives just to get us in a position to be able to be registered to vote. And it's something that I think carries a lot of significance in your respective community, be it on a local level, be it on a national level. Obviously, it seems like it may have more significance on the local level because you're so connected with them, where you can reach out and touch your congressperson, your councilman, or your mayor. You have the ability to do that versus on a national level. But it all matters. It all matters. And, you're setting an example for your child, your grandchild. In my case, I have a great grandchild who's 12, 14, 16 months old. My first grandchild. I have 4 grandchildren, and my grandchild, my great grandchild. It makes me smile because whenever he comes around, he's the life of the party. He's the life of the dinner. Everybody, so I'm just so excited about him. But yes, please get out to vote, please.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yes,
Amen.
So King Leslie.
Yes.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a chance to make your prediction. But before you do so, Vernell Mako is Chuck Mako.
Okay,
all right. And he made a comment that he was being recruited by many, but he chose to play with you. And it was a pleasure winning a championship with you. That's from Chuck Mako. Chuck Mako, another All-American.
I recall Chuck was a ball player. He could ball. Yes, he could. Chuck could ball, and it was a pleasure having Chuck, on our basketball team because he could ball, he could play, and he was serious about the game, and that's what I liked about Chuck. Some guys come and play around, but Chuck could play, but he was serious about playing. Yes, I recall Chuck, no doubt.
But he need to go ahead and update that name so we can know who he is. All right. Now, Kim Jones, he was also a Hawk.
Yes.
And he said when he walked into the gymnasium and saw you, he knew that he was in the right place.
Okay. That's a good thing. Well, Hawks fly high. We always, we saw. We're talking about University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And, Jeannie, I saw Fayetteville on TV, playing football. I think they were playing football. The ECU channel that comes on.
Yeah.
What about you? Because you attended Fayetteville, am I correct?
No, I went to St. Augustine.
St. Augustine, okay. Yeah. St. Augustine, right. You're still in North Carolina.
Right.
Yes, St. Augustine. That's where you attended. Okay. Because I saw you on a couple of occasions, either
CIAA tournament.
Yes. CIAA
tournament.
tournament down in North Carolina. Yes.
Exactly.
And the thing about North Carolina, you attended school in North Carolina. And the thing about Southern hospitality to me is real. It's real.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It really is real. So I enjoy having the opportunity to play there. And ironically enough, the MEAC has been moved up to Baltimore. They're playing in Baltimore now.
Correct.
So they play out of Baltimore, and I can understand why they would want Baltimore. We want them. Morgan, we want them because it brings a lot of money.
Exactly.
It brings a lot of money. But what I was impressed with by having our games, and we played down with Duke plays down in Durham. It was never any trouble. And if you go to any of those football games, I mean, like North Carolina Central versus North Carolina A&T, and they're just the outings that are there are just phenomenal.
It really is.
It really is. And here's the thing that has been so impressive to me. We have thousands of African American folk there, and no trouble.
Zero.
Exactly. We don't get this advertised or televised or anything like that, but I have to bring it up because I know I've been to a number of events of that particular nature, and there really hasn't been any trouble. And this is, I give you, and I'm going to leave the subject alone. Another event, some of you may well have attended over the years, and that's the jazz program that they have in Columbia every year. And that's a number of smooth jazz artists come to Columbia, and for years that program has been going on. And I haven't attended all of them, but from time to time I'll attend. Once again, significant number of African Americans here. I've simply never seen any trouble. I've never seen any drama, any fights, or anything like that. People just going to have a good time.
Exactly.
Enjoy the entertainment, enjoy the company. Sometimes you meet people who you did not know prior to attending that. And as a person, as I mentioned to you earlier in my comments, we as a people have to be really, really the ones who talk and tell our own narrative. That's important. And that's what I'm doing now in relationship to us as a people in the events that we involve ourselves with. All of you that I'm talking to this evening have been to so many more events than I can mention that you've had a thoroughly good time at, and it's been no trouble. And you know that. And that we as a people, we need to recognize that and put that out, because obviously the negative is going to be shown. We see it all the time. We do. But there's so many positive things relevant to us as a people that really, really need to be put out there. And that's one of them. We can gather thousands of us at a time, and there's no drama, no problem. So, you know, and that's a part of our reality. It simply is.
So Leslie, all right, this is what we're gonna do. All right.
Okay.
I'm receiving so much feedback, so I'm gonna give you a chance to make your prediction. I'm gonna pass it over to Yana so she can recognize our answer, and I'm gonna thank you for being on the show.
I want to thank you for having me. I really do.
So here's your chance to make your prediction.
Well, I'm gonna make a prediction, but understand this. Understand that. Let me put it out there, since you know I'm the honoree. I'm a Cowboy fan. That being said, I got to put it out there. That being said, I predict that the Ravens will defeat the Commanders in a very good and a very exciting game, 31-28. The Ravens will win. But I really love. I love that Commander quarterback, Daniels. Oh man, in years to come, he's a man. And you know, I mean, I have a reason why I chose them, because I've seen throughout my lifetime, whenever there has been a athletic contest involving an up-and-coming athlete versus someone who's established, the majority of the times, the more established athletes team tends to win. And that's what I'm basing my prediction on. Basing primarily that.
All right, we were doing so well up until that point. I was just about to say how wonderful the interview has been, and then you blew it. No.
Did y'all not hear Mr. Stanton say we was related? Don't you see me sitting with this Ravens jersey? What you expect me to say? It's a blood thing now.
Before we get out of here, we want to thank our sponsors, My Econ, a personal financial success company, and the owner is Mr. Ivy Stokes. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. Also, Image Power Inc., established since 2009, gaming and slot machine division, marketing and public relations division, certified MBE in the state of New York and the state of Maryland. The owner is Mr. Carroll H. Henson Jr. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. Armand, am I leaving anyone out?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you to our viewers for showing up and showing out tonight. Thank you, Mr. Stanton, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all very much. Outstanding questions. Outstanding
guest. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Hey, cuz, it's a pleasure.
That's right. You heard what he said. You heard what he said, right?
That's right.
Okay, as long as you understand what he said. Woo!
That's it.
Come on.